So we had started with the shofars yesterday, and to continue this issue of shofar. Yesterday we just talked about that one Gemara says Lama Tokin, Rahman Amatiku, another Gemara says Nema Amatora Imulafana Shofaros. So I just tried to answer that point, that why we do the mitzvahs is because Hashem said so. And all the mitzvahs are like that. But the more that you understand the mitzvahs, so then you're doing better. It wasn't so clear yesterday what you're doing better. Maybe I think I remember the way that Rav Nosson Rotman explained it, that you're also doing the will of the king. You're doing his will. It means you're interested. You're doing his will. In other words, if you don't know what you're accomplishing by the doing, so you're doing the act, but you're not connected to his will. But yeah, when we just started now, and we're just elaborating on the point about what we said yesterday, which is not, I want to go further already, just the point about what is the benefit of knowing the reasons of the mitzvah as much as we can know.
Who was the Rav?
Nosson Rotman.
Rotman.
You know him, right? So he says that not about this stuff, but by any kind of mitzvah, really the Mesilas Yesharim says it also, many places he came to explain the Mesilas Yesharim, that if the father says to bring me whatever, nails, and you don't know what the nails are for, so you're doing the will of getting the nails, but if you know what he wants to do with the nails and you're connected to that, so you're connected to the real will of the father, you're really connected to his ratzon also, not only to the act, the last thing you need, that he needs nails. Is what?
Not only to his order,
right? Also to his right, what he really wants. So then you're serving him better when you're doing his will, not just his order. That's the way to say it. Maybe I hope that's clearer. I didn't mean to make a big deal out of it, but
yes, I think you insisted on it. But if let's say that he wants the nails, right? You go buy nails, it's general nails. But then
so I agree with you. That's what trying to say a different point. So then you know what kind of nails to get. You need. I understand.
He needs little
yes,
nails.
yes.
If you go buy a big selection of gigantic nails,
yeah, got the wrong ones. So I understand. I wasn't arguing. That's what I'm saying. That wasn't the point that I was trying to say. I'm saying another point, that the more you know the real intent, so then you won't make any mistakes in what you're supposed to do. If he just says get nails, but you know what the nails are for, so you might get the wrong size nails. And now that you know what he wants it for, so that's true. I'm not arguing with that. That's definitely true. But I'm saying a different point. Even if you have exact instructions which nails to get, and you're going to the act will be done perfectly. But if you know what he wants it for, so then your service is a deeper service, because you're not just doing his orders, you're doing his will. Means the inner will that he has, you're connecting to his inner will. Okay, that was the point. That is
sharing his passion, whatever the passion.
And you're doing that for him. It means you're interested in doing his will, not only his order. Okay, I think it's a nice way to say it. That was the general idea I was trying to say yesterday.
That's in all the mitzvahs.
Yes, that was in general. Yes, but not in Rosh Hashanah. He was saying it in general. The Mesilas Yesharim many times. The Ramchal very often always talks about knowing Hashem's will, not just not that's what you're supposed to do. Get from here to here, but like the GPS, but where you're going. The first thing in the Mesilas Yesharim says, you're supposed to know what the goal is. And others don't talk about what the goal is. Just do what you're told. The Torah says, do this, do this, do this. So do what he's told. But the Ramchal says, no, you have to know, where am I going? Where does Hashem want me to get to? So he said it over there. The Ramchal in general always.
He says,
yes, the first paragraph. The first paragraph. Yisod Chasidus v'Shor Shavot.
That helps us. What's the right that Hashem wants us to know for the next avodah?
Okay. If it doesn't need a raya, is also good. If it doesn't need a proof, is also good. That I think there were proofs, but we started talking about when we spoke about Malchuyas. So it says Imru Lefanei Malchuyas. Say the psukim of Malchuyas in order that you should make me king over you, as we just explained. And say the psukim of Zechronos in order that your remembrance should come before me for good. The judgment should be a good judgment, a good verdict. And Bameh Bashofar. So we said that some do understand Bameh Bashofar is going back on both the Malchus and the Zechronos, and the shofar is also a way how to make Hashem to be king. It is interesting that the Gemaras don't say that. Whenever the Gemara talks about the shofar, it always talks about the Zechronos. Maybe this Gemara says differently. It goes back on everything. But there are those that say it's only going back on the one immediately previously mentioned, which is only Zechronos. And that's the Gemara many places that says that the koach of the shofar is something to do with the Zechronos, something to make the verdict a good verdict. And that's what I'd like to speak about.
It's more difficult to tie Malchus with shofar.
People will say that the way the Yama said all the time, that the way you coronate a king is that you blow trumpets. That's the way the coronation.
It's not shofar.
So is shofar.
No, I don't know.
So they used to do, nowadays people don't use a shofar, but in those days we see until the whole time that there was a tof, a chinor, a nevel, and a tupim, and a shofar.
Yeah,
Shofar's
they
what?
said they just said that they did it, but it didn't say it was a commandment. So that was the point that we made.
Does the Gemara talk about that? Does the Gemara ever talk about it? Even if they did it in the Tanakh, if they would coronate a king with that, but does it say by shofar Rosh Hashanah that that's the issue or not? That was the point they said. So I'm not coming to argue. There are those that say so. They bring the Rashba and the Ritva. I didn't see it recently, but the Rashba and the Ritva probably not Gemara. They say the Gra, in the name of the Gra and the Volozhin, that they also would say that the shofar is making Hashem king. So then take it away. But Naman said that it's the way to coronate a king is by blowing a shofar. They bring the pasuk of Avil Lefnei Chatzos called shofar Avil Lefnei Melech Hashem. Could be that pasuk would be also a source. And the fact that in the Musaf that we do blow shofar 3 times, we blow shofar by the bracha of Malchios and by Zechronos and by shofaros. That also might lean itself that it's also a way of coronating Hashem. Could be, but I would like to elaborate on the Zechronos part. That it says that Jolie says. It surely says that the shofar causes it brings in the remembrance of Am Yisrael to Hashem for good. So what is that now? How does
I don't know how shofros.
right? What does shofar have to do with Zechronos? What's the connection? I'm not going to really explain how it works, but just what it accomplishes. And Ramchal explained something that you probably have to have Kabbalah to know the depth of what he's saying, but just this general idea. Rosh Hashanah is a day of mishpat, which means it has to be judgment, which is deserving. When Hashem makes the judgment, it's a Yom Adin. Yom Adin means that it's what's deserving. Mishpat, din, all that means deserving. Just to point out that deserving is not a bad thing. Sometimes people look at the word mishpat as if it's a bad thing. It's not an onish. Mishpat, judgment doesn't mean punishment. It means deserving. Deserving means what you deserve. Right? I can no way to explain that. But the fact that we get what we deserve is the whole basis of the world. If Hashem didn't want to give us what we deserve, then He just would have made the Gan Eden right away, and we wouldn't have needed this whole world. It would have been right away Olam Haba. But Hashem wanted that we should deserve it, which is the best good that we could have had, because it's not us. If it's not this beginning of Derech Hashem, that is only inherently you if you did something to deserve it. So deserving is not a bad thing. Just, of course, it's frightening when we might deserve punishment. And we don't want to be that part of the world that Hashem is eradicating. When Hashem comes to do mishpat, we saw the psukim in Tehillim 96, 97, 98, the ones that we say, some of them every day, and some on Friday night. It says again and again that everything's rejoices. When Hashem does mishpat, Hashem is leading the world to its purpose. And that's surely a good thing. But of course, we want to make sure that we don't get messed up in the judgment. But today is the day of judgment. So the issue that comes to issue, the question is that there's no room for mercy. Mercy means that it's not what's deserving. And mishpat means what's deserving. There's din and chesed. So the mishpat is only what's deserving. So there's a problem. On Rosh Hashanah, is there any possibility how to get a judgment which is going to be berachamim? So the Ramchal gives a mashal. He gives an example. I think we could relate to the example, and once we know the example, then we could jump to the shofar. The example is that it says, Kol ha'mavel midosav, Kol ha'merachem al abrios. I forgot exactly the lashon. Kol ha'merachem al abrios, merachem alav ben hashamayim. Kol ha'mavel midosav. Oh, Kol overal. Two different mamor.
The first one called.
So two Gemaras where it says the same idea. Maybe each one has a different nuance, but it says if a person is compassionate to others, then Hashem will be compassionate to him. If someone, Mida connected Mida. If someone is compassionate to others, Hashem will be compassionate to him. That compassion, that Hashem is compassionate to him, is that in a specific case, or he's going to get compassion in everything, in his whole judgment? He's going to get compassion. Why? Because he has a midah, he has an attribute that he's compassionate to others. That compassion that Hashem has upon him, is that considered deserving or not deserving? Means if let's say this whole person is standing trial, and the judgment is going to be with mercy. Does he deserve that mercy or not? Mercy usually means that you don't deserve it, but I'm going to be merciful.
If you were kind, Hashem's midah.
You know, your quotation is the wrong thing. You're quoting that just like Hashem is merciful, you should be merciful. That's not what you want to say.
I do want to say that because I'm saying that if I equate my actions to the actions of the Banishal, and he.
It doesn't say that. It says that just like Hashem is merciful, you should be merciful. So you can't, what you want to say, it doesn't say in that statement. That statement says, learn from Hashem's ways, just like Hashem is merciful, be like him.
Okay.
You can't continue from that to say what you want to say. What do you want to build on that?
I'm saying that I'm now Tzelem Elokim. I create by doing what Hashem.
You went in the ways of Hashem.
And surely the reciprocal is that Hashem will see.
So that you're saying on your own. That's something else. That's now you're saying something else. That doesn't say in the first statement. It says in another statement. You're bringing that it says just like Hashem is merciful, you be merciful. That's but now we're talking about that it says they're right. So that the Gemara says that if you are merciful, Hashem will be merciful to you. That it says, not in the statement. That says or that it says. So I'm asking that compassion that you'll be treated with, is that deserving or not? Mercy. Compassion, by definition, means you don't deserve it. But the fact that he is compassionate to others, the compassion that Hashem will have on him, is that deserving?
I would say yes.
Why?
Because everything in the Bria is important to you. So Hashem said, well, you're important to me.
Because you deserve it.
Why do you deserve it?
Because you're a nice guy. So Hashem's going to be nice.
Yeah, because you deserve, because since you are compassionate to others, you deserve compassion. That's good. That's the point I want to say. That since you are compassionate to others, so you deserve compassion. So on one hand, he's getting compassion, which means that the compassion itself means by definition that it's undeserved. But you deserve compassion. Isn't it beautiful? So first of all, some of point out that that's a good thing to have, because when a person is judged, he wants to have compassionate judgment. And here's a way how to have compassionate judgment, by being compassionate to others. For instance, if a person somehow in Rosh Hashanah would be able to get that, if he'd have a midah of being compassionate to others, then he could work on Rosh Hashanah also. He can get that in Rosh Hashanah also, because even though Rosh Hashanah is only deserving, it's Yom Adin, but he deserves compassion. Isn't that beautiful?
So now, a question. Here I am in Rosh Hashanah. I got all the monster. I got a lot to say, a lot's going on in my mind. Am I feeling okay with davening? My recruise is good. Am I distracted by somebody saying something stupid in the corner there? Am I I'm wondering why I'm getting the idea? All those little things that come up on the day, and they're taking me out of my yearly activities. I did a lot of mitzvahs. Let's just pretend. I did lots of, that's it. I had Rachamim quite a few times. I should be having a good judgment. I think I should be feeling well about my year. And then B'ezras Hashem, a great year is coming, right? But instead, I'm worrying about stupid little things, about he sat in my seat, or whatever.
I would like to come back to it, but it's like a side issue. I'd like to come back to that, but we're holding in the middle of trying to understand the shofar. I would like to come back to that point. That's what we're talking about. That's our subject. We're talking about shofar.
I'm still in the mercy thing.
So again, shofar, trying to talk about what does shofar do? What does shofar do? So we said that it does the chronos. It accomplishes that the verdict should be a good verdict. So we're in the middle of figuring out how does it work. So there's a Ramchal as a mashal, and he talks about that. First of all, the problem, the way to say problem, whatever. The issue is that Rosh Hashanah is Yom Adin. Yom Adin means that everything is judgment. Everything is deserving. That's what Yom Adin means. So there's no place for mercy by deserving. If the judgment has to be what is deserving, So is there any place for rachamim? Is there any place that Hashem could judge in mercy if it's a Yom Adin? These two things contradict. So the Ramchal gives a mashal how to understand what's happening. When somebody's compassionate upon others, so he deserves compassion. Those were deserves
He's saying
compassion.
Over here, it's compassion bedin.
Right. So that part we understand. There's a way that a person could get compassion from Hashem, even on a deserving level, because if he does compassion, he deserves compassion. Means other mitzvahs a person does has a reward. Each mitzvah has a reward. The reward for being compassionate is that he's treated with compassion. Right? Good.
Yeah.
So that would make sense that even on Yom Adin, even on the day of judgment, where everything is only deserving, there's no room for mercy. But this is deserved mercy. Nice? No, that was only a marshal. And that's true. The marshal is true also. And it's a good thing to learn that a person should be compassionate because then he'll deserve compassion, even on Rosh Hashanah. But the Ramchal says another point that the shofar, the reward for the mitzvah of shofar is that Hashem, that the
Remember us for good.
mercy with
So,
mercy,
uh,
mercy.
Chinese,
Yes,
Yoretchem,
that is mercy. That the reward for the mitzvah of shofar. How does it work exactly? We still have to know. But the reward for the mitzvah of shofar, the deserving reward. Every reward means that it's deserving. The deserving reward for the mitzvah of shofar is that he should be treated with compassion.
But that has nothing to do with what he did all year long. It's the same.
There's compassion. It means compassion also doesn't mean that everything is erased. But there's a judge who's compassionate judge. So it means it could be has to do with what he did last year. But there's a way of split. There's a strict judgment, and there's no room for mercy. And then there's to judge what he did, but with mercy. But the factor of mercy can't be just mercy that's undeserved, because Rosh Hashanah has to be deserving. But here, the shofar will give him the merit that he should deserve compassion. The reward of shofar is compassion.
it's very crazy. What happens if he wasn't a compassionate person all year?
I was just using a mashal. The mashal is not the nimshal. There's a mashal. Take the mashal and put it aside. The mashal is also true. I just was using a mashal, which is very understandable. When a person is compassionate to others, so we understand that he deserves compassion. That's true. Now we're talking about a different point, not the person who's compassionate to others. He's supposed to shofar. You know what the reward of shofar is?
Hashem remembers you,
Compassion.
you for compassion.
That means that the reward of the mitzvah of shofar, the reward of the mitzvah of shofar is that he is judged with compassion. The same way, that's the same way, not the same thing. The same way that the reward for being compassionate is that you will be treated with compassion. So the reward of the mitzvah of shofar is that you should be treated with compassion.
So it means that it's really not to rely on your actions.
So I said, that's what Moshe just asked. That has nothing to do with your actions. It has to do with the actions, but there's a way of judging his actions with strict judgment. And there's a way of, rachmim doesn't mean chesed. Chesed and rachmim are two different things. Chesed means nothing to do with what you did. Rachamim does have to do with what you did, but it's compassionately. It means it's not that we don't look at all what you did, but there's a way to look at it with strict judgment and nothing else to talk about. Whatever you did, then there's compassion. Other things are taken into consideration. And
Not bringing his,
okay, whatever you want to say, many things, right? So the point that Ramchal is saying is that even though Rosh Hashanah is a Yom Adin and everything has to be deserving, and the heart is no way to get any compassion, Hashem invented a way that we should be able to have deserved compassion, and that is the mitzvah of shofar.
How do we know that that's the rule of the shofar?
So the Gemara says that when Hashem, the shofar is Hashem is omed mikisei din and Yoshev al kisei rachamim, it says that the shofar causes that there should be rachamim, and it also says that it's machneses zechrono seim shel Yisrael l'tova. It says that. Now the question is, how could it be that Rosh Hashanah is din? So how could it be rachamim? So the Ramchal says
now
that
we
that.
see the rachamim, but I
they
don't
said-
see how rachamim and zekronos are necessarily.
Oh, zechronos, no, zechronos means the judgment. Is the judgment going to be strict then there's nothing to do. So I sit back and there's nothing to do. And you can't ask for rachamim on Rosh Hashanah because Rosh Hashanah is Yom Adin.
I see.
So his point is that you could deserve rachamim. And Hashem
Really,
made.
but my is really dependent on the shofar.
So the shofar is very critical on Rosh Hashanah.
Or he has a tremendous reshima of rachamim that he did all year long.
Okay, that's all.
That
But
should
but
work.
but it seems that it's not the rachamim of the deservedness of the rachamim of the shofar seems to be very, very potent, very strong rachamim that is aroused by as a reward of the mitzvah of shofar.
Now, how important is the person that blows blows the shofar. The shofar blow in your shoe.
Right. So in like any mitzvah, there's the eichut, the quality of a mitzvah, and a person who's a bigger tzaddik, or they talk about people that know what the meaning of the shofar is. So the same way we spoke about that, there's more meaning in mitzvah. They did the mitzvah, but there's a way that the mitzvah is more potent. Same way you ask somebody to daven for you, so you understand if it's a bigger tzaddik and he knows davening better, so then he's more worthy. So therefore they try to get a shofar blower who also is more worthy, and also he knows more what he's doing. He knows what the intent. Let's say he knows the Arizal, he knows the Zohar, he knows what the shofar is doing. The way I explained it just now, I didn't say anything. I just said that it happens to be that the reward of shofar is rachamim, but it doesn't explain how does it work, what are the mechanics, what's happening, different stages and different aspects that it's doing. So a person who knows the previous, some people I see that they, for the whole month already, they've been learning the Arizal on the shofar. The people out there, especially people that are blowing, and they are people that know the kavanas of the shofar. So, and the person's a big tzaddik also. I also think that the Pashup Pshat is we said this the other day, maybe I'm not sure, we just left it off. Who is the shofar intended? Who's supposed to hear the shofar? Means the mitzvah of shofar. Who is the listener to the shofar?
Every simple Jew and every side, everybody was
Right. So I think that's how people understand based on the Rambam. The Rambam says, what's the mitzvah of shofar? So the Rambam says that it's a gzeres hakasuv. The Rambam says we don't know, but he says that I'll tell you a remez. There's a remez. A remez. It seems pretty clear that the Rambam is saying his own remez, and he's speculation, and he's not saying that this is the reason of the mitzvah. But he says it's like a wake up call. He's like a siren. That everybody wake up. You're sleeping the whole year. You're sleeping. What are you doing? You're sleeping. You're going through the year, indulging in vanities, and they're going in the wrong world. You're in the wrong planet. You don't know that this is a place to do avodas Hashem. So the shofar is waking everybody up. So according to that, the shofar is intended that we should hear it. It's like the alarm clock that we're supposed to hear the alarm clock, but that's not so simple. And the Rambam himself says that it's a remez and it's not the essence of the shofar. But there are many proofs that it seems to say that the shofar is an outcry to Hashem, and Hashem is the one who's listening to the shofar. And the truth is that it says that in the Musaf. In Musaf, we have a bracha for Malchus, Zechonos, and Shoparos, and the way the first bracha ends off, Baruch atah Hashem, Melech al kol haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael v'yom hazikaron. Hashem is the king, and he consecrated the day. And then the bracha and Zechonos. So each one is a long bracha, many psukim. It's a very long Musaf. But then by Baruch atah Hashem Zocher Bris, that's the way that it ends off the second bracha of Zechonos. And how does Shoparos end off? Baruch atah Hashem Shomea Kol Turas Amo Yisrael Barachamim. So the bracha says beferish that Hashem hears the sound of the shofar blowing with mercy. So it says Hashem is the one who's listening to the shofar, and it's a very interesting thing. It sounds a little bit like we're blowing as an outcry. The same way we would call out to Hashem, the shofar is an outcry to Hashem, and Hashem listens to the shofar. It's a whole different.
That's your mother. The amkus of what he quoted from your mother was crying with the shofar.
I don't remember.
I remember you came back one day and said, and your mother said that you heard the shofar cry.
And the truth is that our bracha that we say, Shomea l'shmoa kol shofar, the bracha l'chor is not like that. The bracha we say, bracha Hashem l'kenim melech olam hasheket l'shem l'mitzvah l'tzivanu l'shmoa kol shofar. That means that the commandment is that we should hear the kol shofar. That's not, and I'm saying the opposite over here. That it's not the mitzvah that we should hear it. Of course you have to hear it, but same way when you say a bracha, you're supposed to hear the bracha that you're saying. If you're talking to somebody, you have to hear what you're saying. So it could be that that's not a kasha, the fact you have to hear the shofar. But it's really calling out to Hashem. And it happens to be that not everybody agrees that the bracha is the Shmuel Kol Shofar. We pass them like that, but the Gemara doesn't say. The Gemara doesn't say what the bracha is. And some Rishonim say the bracha is the Litkoa Shofar. Yom Tzurah Yalachem, L'Riyah B'Shofar. We pass him like the minig is to do the halacha, this bracha, the Shmuel Kol Shofar, to hear the sound of the shofar, which is against what I'm saying. That's not according to what I'm saying. The essence of shofar is not to hear it. The essence of shofar is that Hashem should hear it. We're calling out to Hashem. Hashem is listening.
What am I doing while we're showing blind shofar?
Of course, you're listening to it, but you're listening to the outlet. It's like you're listening to it when you're davening. You also have to hear what you're saying, but it's not that you're talking to yourself. You're talking to Hashem. I think the shofar also. You have to hear what you have to hear. You're blowing, but you're not blowing to yourself to wake up. You're blowing to cry out to Hashem.
What's me about it to care? What's
No, of
everybody
course,
else
the way we do the mitzvah is surely
we should
that by hearing it, and by hearing it, that's called that we're crying out to Hashem. Enough to have each person blowing. You can have one person blowing for everybody, but we're all blowing to Hashem. We're all crying out to Hashem. I think that that's the essence of the shofar, the pashtus. There's an interesting thing that this.
I know, I think what's asked about, listen, so while it's being blown, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, that's
They're crying out to Hashem. Hashem, we're crying out to Hashem with the shofar, and Hashem should hear our shomeya call to us, Amo Yisrael B'Rachamim. That Hashem should hear our outcry. I think it's more of a pashup shot.
then it should make call to us.
Hashem hears, right? We're being Torah. We're the ones who are shouting out with the shofar, and Hashem listens to our shofar B'Rachamim. It's like mamash what Chaz. The Musaf I think is more. How do you say? More mikori, more sourced than the bracha we say on the shofar, because that's the Rishonim. The Rishonim were arguing what the bracha should be. But I think this is Raman Sheikh Nesa Gadol. I think that the bracha, the shomer, that everyone says a bracha, shomer called to us, Amo Yisrael B'Rachamim. There's also an interesting point that I might answer also. The Mishabura, this is very technical halacha, but I think it also sheds light. That talks about if you're allowed to interrupt between hearing the shofar. You're supposed to hear a certain amount of blowings. Is there any problem having an interruption in between the sounds? So the Mishabura has a problem that usually we don't have issue with having a hafsaka, having an interruption between the sounds, only if you weren't allowed to continue the mitzvah. Let's say you're davening, and you stopped Kriya Shema, and you stopped, and then you continued. How much of a interruption is considered a break in the Kriya Shema? So it talks about if it was as long as it takes to say the whole Kriya Shema, but then it talks about only if you were in a situation that you weren't allowed to say Kriya Shema. Let's say there was excrement, there was a bad smell. So then that hafsaka was a forced hafsaka. You couldn't. So then any hafsaka where you weren't allowed to, that's considered hafsaka. But if you were allowed to, yes, you didn't. Yes, you stopped, but you didn't have to stop. So then it's not what you weren't halachically held back. So it's not considered hafsaka. So the Mishnah has a problem. The real Allah has a question that here in the halachas of Tashofar talks about there's a problem if it's too much of hafsaka in between. And he says there's no halachic restraint in any, and never not to blow a shofar. Are you not allowed to blow a shofar in the bathroom? Are you not allowed to blow a shofar next to excrement? That's his problem. He leaves it with a question. That shofar should be like any mitzvah. Is there a halacha that you're not allowed to take a lulav next to excrement or in the basic kisei? Yeah, mitzvah. There's davening, there's kriya shema that you're not allowed to say divrei Torah. But as far as doing a mitzvah, there's no halacha that you're not allowed to do a mitzvah under certain circumstances. You always can do a mitzvah. So he doesn't understand why is making interruption by the shofar an issue. It shouldn't be an issue because you never held back from blowing shofar. You're allowed to blow shofar wherever you want to. That's Mishnah has a question, and he leaves it more or less as a question. But I think this would answer the question that the shofar is not just a mitzvah. The shofar is calling out to Hashem. It's like a way of davening.
Oh, wow.
It's like a kriya shema. It's like tefillah. You're calling out to Hashem. So maybe you're not supposed to do it in the bathroom. Maybe you're not supposed to do it next to him.
Now, if you say it's over, so that's when Pshan Brach we say Bamusaf Shemer Kol Tfilas.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
No, so that's mamish what you're saying. That's
right. The problem is that the bracha we say is on the shofar is the shmor kol shofar.
Yeah, but for Musaf you
but
see clearly what you say.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying. That shomer Hashem b'shomer kol to us Amo Yisrael B'Rachamim. Okay, so that was a.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When you say it's crying out to Hashem, so this crying out to Hashem, I was taught like to be thinking Hashem, whatever you want, in a sense like a Kabbalah. Hashem, I want to do whatever you want me to do.
What does that have to? How does that connect to the shofar? Like where is it in the shofar? It has maybe you
I'm asking, what does it mean?
I think what you heard. Yeah. So I think what you heard is
just because I'm supposed to cry. What does that have to do?
No, we understand that it's an outro. The shofar sounds like
close to Hashem.
It's crying out to Hashem that He should give us a good verdict. He should.
Or crying out for a good day.
Of course, I'm leaving out all the Kabbalah, which I don't know about what the shofar is doing. Does it have to do with the avos of Yitzchak and Yaakov? Does it have to do with Akedah? Does it have to do with
says it's going to turn to sit on the.
But how does it do? What is the shofar doing exactly? The truth is, all these mitzvahs, every mitzvah has to have Kabbalah. What does the lulav accomplish? What is the What does Shtei Alechem accomplish? What does the Omer, what does Yisrael Hamayim accomplish? So it just says that the result is going to be have good rains. But what are you doing exactly to bring to libate water? So everything has to have understanding, probably on a Kabbalah level, of what is the essence of what you're doing. But what is it accomplishing that we can talk about? So I think in general, some kind of an outcry to Hashem. Of course, it's gonna. If you know what are you crying? What is the tkiyah? What is the shvarim? What is the trua? So those who know Kabbalah, they're more on hands-on of what they're doing exactly. What are they crying out? What is it? What is it? What is a? In what way is it being poned to Hashem? Is it turning to Hashem? But I think that's a general idea that it's calling to Hashem to have rachamim, to take away the evil. But I think that what you heard, I understand that the one whoever told you that probably is basing it that the shofar has to do with malchuyos. Not only I'm saying Zichronos, but so what does it mean to accept? And they say malchuyos is to accept Hashem as being king. So he's saying that Hashem, I want you to be the king, and you should be in the driver's seat, and whatever you say, that's what I want to do. That's a way more of malchuyos, not what I'm talking about. That's understanding that the shofar is a medium to coronate Hashem.
Okay, well, there was also an eitzah to make a Kabbalah.
Oh, to make a Kabbalah?
To
what?
make a Kabbalah.
I don't know what that is. I'll tell you what they say.
I'm going to
do
from now on, I'd say something small that I can tie in.
So this point that Lev Yaakov is talking about is not the shofar exactly, but it says that the shofar has to have the tshuva in order that it should work. It's like a condition, or that it helps, it greases that the shofar is more works. How do you say it? It's more.
It's more viable.
Why? It's more effective. More effective when you have tshuva. And it seems that people don't have tshuva, so then maybe it's not effective. I don't know if it's everything or nothing, but the tshuva it's like calling out to Hashem. Now they're saying that what is tshuva? So they're going to say to make a certain Kabbalah. Now we get into that subject. What is tshuva? If that's what I have to say about the shofar more or less. And now it says that with the shofar you should have tshuva. A person, Am Yisrael comes back. They don't say Vida on Rosh Hashanah. You don't confess, but you're supposed to have done tshuva. That's why we have Elul for. We have the whole month before to have been doing tshuva. So now we're just talking about the tshuva. What is tshuva? What is tshuva? So we can go on to the next subject. We have about 10 minutes. What is tshuva?
Rav, what do you say the month of Elul we have? I mean, we don't start the slichos till later. Why Elul? What in Elul?
We do blow the shofar. We do blow. The Sfaradim do have slichos, and the Ashkenazim they don't have, but they do have shofar. Everybody started something during Elul. Elul is sourced in earlier sources. It's not a Gemara Elul, but it does have sources, and it's corresponding to the 40 days from that led up to Yom Kippur. That means that. From Rosh Chodesh Elul until Yom Kippur is 40 days, and Moshe Rabbeinu was on Har Sinai in those 40 days. And the same way that Yom Kippur is because of the first Yom Kippur, so that happened by the Egel, that Hashem says, that Hashem forgave us for the Egel. So not only Yom Kippur is corresponding to that first Yom Kippur, but the whole 40 days also is corresponding to those 40 days. There are other sources also. Some talk about the 30 days till Rosh Hashanah. Some talk about the 40 days until Yom Kippur. But there are earlier sources that talk about it. And we do have there's all minhagim, but the minhagim do by Ashkenazim also. We blow a shofar. That's supposed to be something more conscious of the days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that are coming.
Okay, yeah, you're more conscious, but it's not. We don't have any other physical manifestation that we're doing till we get to slichos, right? I mean,
I think that even though the Ashkenazim don't say slichos, but the shofar is supposed to say do tshuva. People should be doing tshuva during Elul. That's what the shofar is. That's what the shofar is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. But why? But why do you say? I'm always confused because we learned Gemaras before that a person always has to be doing tshuva. We're always every prayer we have to do tshuva. Every day we have to do tshuva. Why are we now more conscious of it in Elul? What's different? If a Jew is always doing tshuva, then why do we need this concept of Elul? I guess that's a better way to put it.
Okay, because the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are coming. So Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement. So that day surely is the mitzvah to do tshuva, and Hashem accepts it on that day and atones. So the lead up towards that day, the same way that Moshe Rabbeinu led up 40 days until the atonement that came on Yom Kippur. So we're also leading up with the tshuva until the day of Yom Kippur, which is not the whole year. Yom Kippur is not the whole year. So even though the person should do tshuva every time he does an aveir, he should do tshuva right away. But the atonement comes on Yom Kippur, and therefore there's a special tshuva towards that Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, the fact that it's a day of judgment. So again, also a good reason to do tshuva, especially before, because we're coming towards the day of judgment. Chaim David, yeah?
I'm just thinking, when you listen to the shofar, you said it has become a tshuva. You know, my initial reaction when the shofar is blown says, I don't know if I'm ready for this. But there it is. It's
Ready for
blind.
what? Ready for what?
To really.
It's Rosh
Yeah.
Hashanah. I mean,
Yeah, I'm saying that the
I stand-
mitzvah finally arrived after,
yes.
weeks of
Yes.
contemplation. What is shofar? What are we going to get out of it? What are we going to do? What are we going to listen to? How do we think? What do we think? All those things. And, the first thing is a kind of a fear that I'm not ready. I don't know what
Well,
to
that
do.
should happen
I
not
don't
by
know
the
what to
shofar.
do.
That should happen by when
By
Rosh
the
Hashanah
shofar.
comes in. At
What?
Friday, at Rosh Hashanah
Yeah,
by
I know
night.
that, but we all
The shofar-
know that everything seems to be
The sho-
focusing on the shofar.
The
as
shofar is going to be that
the pivot.
that's the mitzvah that Hashem gave us to
That's
be
the
able
pivot of the
to
day.
be able to get rachamim.
Exactly. So that's
Okay, so why are you saying you're not ready?
Everything else was, you're in the
Now-
awesome state.
There's a Yom Adin. There's Yom Adin, and the
Yeah,
shofar is
yeah.
giving us the rachamim. It's not that you're not ready for the shofar. You need the shofar from the beginning. You need the shofar from the
but
Rosh
it
Hashanah.
wasn't being blown until
Yeah.
now. Now
Okay.
it's
So
being
yeah, but the
blown,
Rosh
so
Hashanah.
now
But
what's-
it's not that now am I ready for the shofar. The shofar is the big tzala. That's the big salvation that we have. That Hashem gave us the opportunity to be
Right.
able to get rachamim.
No, so I'm trying to think is that the tshuva is that now I'm bottled to. The mitzvahs of Hashem are now coming into play. This is the mitzvah of the moment.
What does that have to do with tshuva? You're not saying
Bottled
tshuva.
to
You're saying
Hashem.
that.
I'm
What is
bottled
tshuva? What
to
is
Hashem's ratzon. I don't know. I
for
don't
now,
know
today?
I don't know
For
really
now?
what it
For now?
means.
How about tomorrow?
Tomorrow's a different day.
So that's the
It's
question.
like
Is tshuva for
Oh.
today? Tshuva is a one day thing, and
So
afterwards,
it's really-
afterwards we go back
No,
to
you
what we
said you
were.
have to have tshuva at the blast of the shofar. I'm
What
trying to-
does tshuva mean? Does tshuva mean that right now I'm not doing any averis, or right now I feel bad, but tomorrow is like it's all over, or tomorrow's going to be Aseret Shmei Tshuva, but after Yom Kippur,
Right.
but people have a difficulty. People have a what's the word? Not confusion, conflict, and what? That also, but people are difficulty case that people don't feel that their tshuva is gonna stay. They don't think that they're really gonna change. I'm telling Hashem that I have regret and I'm not gonna do anymore. I'm not gonna do this. But people don't trust themselves because they've been doing it for the past. They don't see that they're able to change. So I come today and I say, I'm sorry and I regret and I will.
We're not doing that, Rosh Hashanah.
I'm not doing it, but so you're not saying it. But a person tshuva by essence, the essence of tshuva by definition, tshuva means that I regret. I'm coming back on the path again. I'm coming back on the right path. So he comes back on the right path, and then tomorrow he goes off the path again. Is that called tshuva? A person says tshuva right now. I come to Rosh Hashanah and I'm clean. I did Elul, or I did Rosh Hashanah. Right now I'm doing it in my heart without speaking. I'm not saying it, but I. What kind of tshuva is that? That a person says he's sorry and he resolves not to do it anymore, and he knows he's going to do it again. It's very perplexing to people. What am I doing? What's it all about? Who am I fooling? That's the people's problem. So I think that is partially that people have to realize that tshuva is not a one-day process. It doesn't only happen when a person wants to improve his ways. It's an ongoing process the whole year. And if he thinks that he's going to change in one day, he'll find out after tomorrow. He'll find out tomorrow that it's not going to happen. You don't change in one day. But that a person makes himself on a serious, he's going on a serious path. Somebody owes $1,000. That's big numbers.
Million.
Okay, too big. A person owes $100,000, and the creditor comes and says $100,000. What's going to be? So he says, I have no money. Is that called tshuva? Not so much of a tshuva. And he says, I'm going to pay you right now. And he opens up his pocket, says, doesn't have any money. So what is a real tshuva? That he says, I owe you $100,000. I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to earn this and this much money. This much I could put aside every week, and every week I'm going to send you an installment, and you'll be paid up, whatever, 10 years. Is that called the tshuva?
Yeah.
Yes, and the creditor will be happy. Of course, he'll be happy if you can do it right away. But if you can't, you can't. But I understand you're doing the best that you could. But if he says, I don't have, and he goes, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, but nothing to do. So that's not called the real tshuva. So Hashem doesn't expect it from me either. And if a person makes a serious installment. But if he doesn't plan on making serious installments, then he's not serious. And Hashem knows if he's serious or not. So the question is, are we ready to make serious installments? And people, after much discussion, it came out a big chiddush that the reason why people don't keep to their, they're not consistent about tshuva during the year, is because they don't have a set time to do it. They say, I'll do it when I have time. I have to think about my ways. I have to think about what's right, what's wrong, where am I holding, some kind of an accounting. But people don't do it because they don't have a set time. So that they never get to it. Other things are important. And they don't get around to having the 20 minutes a day or half hour about thinking, what am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing? And really supposed to be an avoda. There's an avoda in a person's life that he's supposed to be dedicated to improving his ways. It doesn't happen by a one-time decision, even if it's Yom Kippur. By Ne'ilah, it doesn't happen. It can't happen. A person doesn't change overnight, but a person constantly changes. So you learn more right and wrong, and then you decide this is I'm doing this. This has to be improved. This has to be improved. What am I going to do about this? How am I going to improve? Sometimes you have to have some kind of a strategy how to get around the issue. It doesn't always mean that it's a decision alone. Even if you know what's right, you also have to make strategies how to circumvent the issue. So if a person would dedicate 20 minutes a day, then and not just say when it happens. It doesn't happen by itself. So I think that will be one of the main ways of doing tshuva. Of course, chavata means that he has remorse on the past, and that fixes up the past also. It rectifies the past, but it's only acceptable if he's really changing. If he's not really going to change, then his remorse is not such a big remorse.
Is that avodas Rosh Hashanah? It's a big one.
I'm just talking about what tshuva is now.
Not sure.
The avodah of Rosh Hashanah is not tshuva. The avodah of Rosh Hashanah is malchus, zechonos, and shafaros.
No,
I just said that you have to have tshuva has to be accompanied by tshuva. But the tshuva of Rosh Hashanah is not going to be saying confession. That's not what we dedicate the day to. We dedicate the day to malchus, zechonos, and shafaros. But it's supposed to be accompanied, as the Ramchal says, and that helps the shofar to accomplish also, to be effective.
Before Rosh Hashanah.
Before Rosh Hashanah, or even on Rosh Hashanah, he has the thoughts of tshuva. But yes, and what's a Hirei Tshuva about how much remorse he has and how much he intends in the future to change his ways. The thing that maybe Yaakov said before about making a certain Kabbalah, that's people because people are copping out. It's what people suggest to make a certain resolution is really a cop out in many ways because they're saying I can't change.
That's the whole truth.
Right, I can't change my ways. I'm going to make 1, 2, 3 resolutions, and the problem is also people don't even do those resolutions either. Usually, you ask them a month later, what was your resolution? They don't remember.
It could be the right way to do it is the Kabbalah is how to go on the right path.
Right. That's it. The resolution would be how to make the installments. Means how to constantly be able to work on it the whole year. If a person is going to make the resolution is going to be that I'm going to have 20 minutes a day,
Oh, that would be good.
and also to safeguard how am I going to have 20 minutes a day?
You do it every night, whatever.
Yes, and-
Different
yeah.
this to this.
And what does he do when he has a wedding to go to? And what does he do on this
Or
and
he's gonna
that?
shut off his phone for a half hour a day
Yeah,
and
something
think,
that should be right. That's something that a person is a real serious resolution of
or
changing
he
his
could even
ways.
set his
But to
phone.
change one thing, everything. He just comes to the creditor and he says,
I'm
I have
gonna
a-
get $10.
right, here it
You're
is,
gonna get
in next week you'll have $10 in your pocket. He says, okay, it's very nice, but is it
Uh-huh.
continuing or is it a one time? So if it's continuing, and I have a list, 95 payments, and you'll have it. Okay, then we're serious. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then he's serious. But he just says, I did something. He's not happy.
Okay,
Okay.
I think you add in today, there's a way to do it. You set your phone
To remind
from
you.
1 to 1:30, your phone's off.
Uh,
And then you have
a set
a
time.
half hour a day.
Thank you,